Hello guys, glad to have you on board again. Today we are going to talk about the monthly candle closes. Definitely not that fancy of them, and we're gonna have to talk about the upcoming quarterly candle closes because this is now my major concern. Remember that I'm still trying to figure out an answer to a tough question, a question that everyone is trying to answer with absolutely subjective bullshit. But to be honest, I've always made it clear I don't have the answer and I won't get it until the quarterly candle closes. So I know everyone is trying to figure out if we are in a bear market or not, if this was just a big one-time event, the biggest bear trap ever. I've made my choice, I think it is, but I will not be able to figure out the truth from the fantasy, until we get this fucking quarterly candle close. Moreover, I know that the answer to that question is not a global answer to every crypto questions. It is definitely going to be a one-to-one answer, and there's going to be different answers from an asset to another. And that is what most people are very much making a lot of mistakes about right now. It is going to be a complex market to navigate, and definitely has been already, but it's not necessarily going to change because everyone wants definitive answers as a big market response, like is the crypto bullish or bearish. I've always made it clear this is nothing new for you, at least I hope so. I don't think there's ever going to be a crypto market with a big C. Okay, we've just built on networks and there are way too many of them. It's a highly competitive sector, so lots of them will die. Not necessarily just because they were bullshit assets or whatever, just because there's way too much competition for everyone to survive. So there's going to be a natural selection event, and I bet that it is going to happen out of the next quarterly candle close. So it still leaves us with 29 days to get to this quarterly candle close. So let's have a look at it. First of all, we're going to have a look at the monthly candle close. Big names first, like Ethereums and Bitcoins. This is absolutely ugly. Like, I'm not going to hide, okay? If we ever go all-time high, Ethereum has to ride up to at least 7,800 to double down on the bearishness closes we've made, meaning that we're in a bull trend. Remember, the bull trends break resistances, and breaking resistances means that Ethereum has now, if it wants to complete my forecast so far, which is normally we're in a bull trend and this is eventually going to be a multi-time frame trend following the one that we have on Bitcoin, then if that's the case, then that means we at least need to be excessive on the final excesses of shorter time frame. I'm not going to go into much details in here, otherwise I'm going to lose you guys. So just going to make it plain simple, not necessarily explaining the why, but explaining the how. Okay, so if my scenario of a multi-time frame trend being played currently on Ethereum, it is at play on Bitcoin, it is speculative on Ethereum because Ethereum has less history than we have on Bitcoin, and therefore I'm not necessarily sure that this was really enough of a monthly range. Okay, so Bitcoin did monthly range, not enough for Ethereum so far. So it's still a question mark, but if it is, and if Ethereum is on the verge to follow the long-term Bitcoin cycle trends and structure, well, in that perspective, we need to have an excessive final excess, meaning we need to get out of this range, but we need to trade above 7,800. So that means the next Ethereum top out of this range, and it can take, of course, multiple months to get out of it. Don't think that this is necessarily going to happen quickly. We can definitely enter some kind of a weird bear market, whatever stuff. It can take some time, but I personally think that more than anything else, there's too much demand. The merge is coming, so anyway, it's going to flush up. It's just a matter of time. I just not speculate on when. I just speculate on, well, it's going to happen anyway, so let's just be patient. Option number 2 would be to fail in here, kind of a failed merge or whatever, and then in that perspective, we'll start to have a divergence between Bitcoin's and Ethereum's future. We'll have a divergence with an Ethereum heading downside on the opposite direction for Bitcoin, which will keep on moving up. So of course everything comes out of the merge. Is it going to be successful, not successful, is going to be further delay or whatever, but anyway, I think more likely that we're going to have to deal with all-time highs in Ethereum anyway. The question is, are we going to be really positively surprised with the merge or whatever? Was it going to be disappointing? God knows, but I think this is where the speculative area is on a monthly chart time frame for Ethereum, trading on top of the resistant context and trying to see if we can sustain prices over there, and if we still have over-demanded products with a limited supply, then in that perspective we're going to trade above this level, and that will be the sign that Ethereum is here to stay on a multi-time frame basis. We're going to get another range in here, don't get me wrong, another range and a final push. That's what I think is coming for Bitcoin. So there's going to be a rush toward these cryptos. I just don't know what exactly is going to cause this thing. Like I said, I don't think the stock market has to be bullish. It can definitely decouple. There is no way in which cryptocurrencies have to follow techs. Cryptocurrencies are their own sectors in the S&P 500, and they can go along the way. They don't necessarily have to wait for the tech to recover or some kind of bullshit like that. So in terms of Ethereum, what I'm most concerned about is the quarterly candle close, because of course in a bullish trend, that kind of candle, no, you're not going to see it. In a bull trend, of course we can break lower lows of candles. We can do this. This is consolidation types of structure, but we generally get to close on the top 50% of that candle. So my first thing that I'm really mentioning out of the quarterly expected candle close, so this is not yet there, this is still 30 days from now, but normally I think Ethereum has very much more chances to get to close at least near or above 2600. So that leaves me with a very tough and important information. Does it looks rational enough that Ethereum closes there around the 30th of June? Well, look at that. I mean, in terms of momentum, that's crazy. That's not the craziest bullish momentum you would see. That's definitely not the end of the world. And if Bitcoin gets to close into this area and the quarterly candle close, that still means we have open doors for more bullishness down the corner. So I know everyone would like to get a very bullish reaction out of there. We just want to get out of these very painful market prices. But still, there's no necessarily short-term reasons for this, because the monthly candle closes that we've got are ugly as fuck. And the only patterns we have on the shorter time frames are taking profits. So of course the bears are getting the hell out, because there's no fucking point selling on the support. But you have to understand that the demand is very weak. The sentiment is crazy low, and we've talked about that in the weekly chart, in the weekly update. The biggest problem we're facing now is that the retailers are facing clinical depression symptoms, meaning that they definitely think that nothing can go better. It's only going to go worse, and if there is ever a price pump, it's going to be short-lived, and it's just going to be an opportunity to sell. So in that perspective, there is no right for pleasure anymore in this market. It feels like the retails think it's only going to go down from now on. And there's a big problem with that, because even if we have clear opposition from the retail, from the professional side of the money, which are definitely buying over the counter everywhere they can get, they're trying to give away dollars to projects to finance their operations in this supposedly bear market. So we have totally contradictory elements, leading me to always believe that we are not in a bear market, we're in a fucking range. The only problem with that range is that we might be taking more time to work around supportive areas rather than resistances, because we have that clear dichotomy within the retail sector. They're thinking it's going to go down, so why the heck would the smart money buy aggressively? They can get these coins cheaper by just letting the price dry out into this area, letting the retails getting exhausted and convinced that anyway it's just worth selling, because the support is not working as a support, so we're obviously going to break it. So what the heck, I'd rather like to get out and buy later eventually, or just get me out of here, okay? That's the biggest problem we're facing now. Okay, so next online, we're going to have to talk about Big Boy Bitcoin, of course. Big Boy Bitcoin has an ugly but still better monthly candle close. We have a lower shadow candle in here, and we're closing pretty much at the 50% of the candle. So that's a sign that, of course, Bitcoin has been holding on way better. But the problem is that this lower shadow candle on Bitcoin has broken the support. So I would say this is kind of a mixed feeling. Ethereum has a weaker close, okay? but instead it didn't really break below the support. But on the opposite end, Bitcoin has kind of a solid recovery, way more stronger than Bitcoin, than Ethereum in the short run, but it has sent kind of a negative message, meaning that Bitcoin has made this ugly, shitty kind of expanding wedge, where on the opposite end, Ethereum still has higher high points and haven't yet made lower low points. So maybe it is to come for Ethereum. That's still a topic for another day. But like I said, all I care about now is where the heck is going to be that quarterly candle close 30 days from now. So in terms of Bitcoin, if we had a look at the quarterly candle close, well, as you can see, it's not that crazy bearish either. So there is not necessarily call for the end of the world type of systems, but it's of course nothing to be excited about. So get real clear with that. I think same thing could happen with Bitcoin, but it's not necessarily absolutely a must-do thing. Ethereum has to recover. The quarterly candle close is ugly as fuck, and we may not want to close out there, otherwise that's a clear message that something has broken with the long-term trends probabilities. Something has changed over the longer-term periods, and we're talking about fucking quarters. So this is no short-term shit. We're really going into the long-term forecast who might be radically changed if Ethereum doesn't recover by the end of the quarter. And it's just 30 days from now. It's going to be quickly assessed. In terms of Bitcoin, like I said, I don't really give a fuck. All I would pay attention to is that I would like this market to eventually recover out of 50% of the candle. That would be a good sign for the future. But even if we were closing the quarter like that, there is still bullish potential for Bitcoin. So is Bitcoin the safest bet in case of a bear market? Yes, it definitely is. But that's the thing. Do you really think there's going to be a bear market? I think this is absolute crappy bullshit to think of that way. So in my personal opinion, yes, having some Bitcoin in the portfolio is absolutely necessary because that's the safest assets. But it's also where, if it's not a bear market, you're going to pass away massive gains, because really understand it that way. If the market has sent a fake bear move and is recovering from the bottom area of that range, well, Bitcoin doesn't have to recover quickly. The money will fly away into where the money is. It's going to be in the altcoins. This is where this is where innovation is. This is where the revolution is happening. Bitcoin is just the first one, the precursor of that revolution. It's not the technological revolution. Bitcoin is just the one of a kind who has been the first one. So it has the flagship kind of, I was there before, so that's good. That gives it interiority and therefore a kind of a stance, a special stance in the market. But that doesn't even mean that this is necessarily the asset of the future. Bitcoin might just be like the early stages of the internet with the Minitel or something like that. It's something that died out over time and some things like that. So don't get it that way. Bitcoin is the safest now in case innovation fails. But I clearly stand for what I said multiple times in the past. I don't think innovation is going to fail. I think most people think it will, and so far it did not. Innovation always finds some way to surprise people. So I think that we're far from being over with cryptocurrencies, and that the bear market, or so-called, is probably nothing more than a fantasy. So we're going to see this, but I want to see this confirmed with its quarterly candle close, because otherwise they would send a pretty dumb and awful message, particularly on other assets like atoms. I mean, look at that quarterly candle. If it closes like that, well, it's going to take way longer than you think to ever recover for something. I mean, there's going to be so many quarter candles to make to stabilize the price before we finally get some strength to try again. So the only question I'm really wondering is this absolute crappy bullshit, meaning that we just got trapped into a bear thing, which is not? Or is it really sending us the message that either these things absolutely worth nothing, this was just a bubble, or really is it going to take many quarters and therefore many years to recover from what happened today in order to be innovative again? I think that's a big problem. The message that's been sent on some coins, top quality coins like Atoms, Link, Solana's, BNB, Moneros, AVAX, and there are some other ones, of course, not an exhaustive list out there. All of those tokens have been absolutely destroyed. I mean, they were in a clear background bullish trend. Breaking some of the candles low point is definitely going to happen. It hasn't happened for a couple of years, so it was due at some point that we would eventually break down the bottom of a previous candle. But that doesn't mean we have to do it that way. Doing this means this was no reason to price in, meaning that this was fake innovation or whatever. I don't think it was the case. Adam definitely brought some definitely interesting tech out there. Is it going to be the future or not? Still very hard to say, but I think this is kind of a harsh reaction toward prices. Of course, we know why. There's Luna, whatever, it has been massively impacting the ecosystem, and specifically Cosmos, because this is where most people have been taking their exit liquidity from their shitty Luna tokens and USD. So of course, Cosmos has been in the first line of sight after this event. So is this really necessary? That's the question I'm really wondering. So if we were to return to mean, meaning just out of this quarterly candle, if we were just to retrace, to leave a lower shadow candle, meaning that just going to close at the 50% line of that candle, that means atoms have to recover down to, or right up to $5.5 billion market cap. In terms of short-term price action, that means recovering out there. But most importantly, what that tells me is that on the monthly chart, that would mean that we have to bullish engulf the previous month, meaning that whatever happens in May was actually a problem, was an anomaly. Though that means the prices we've gone down to in terms of atoms going down below $3 billion would actually be just an anomaly, probably catalyzed by the Luna's bullshit. But once again, out of the long-term picture, if this is an anomaly, I think it has to be pulled out of the current month, meaning that the quarterly candle close has to retrace back to neutrality, and therefore that means we're going to bullish engulf the previous month's candle. So this is why I'm really concerned about the fact that I don't think there's going to be one big crypto answer. I think there's going to be a project-to-project answer during the next 30 days. Some projects have suffered very, very dramatic drawdowns in terms of quarterly candle closes, in quarterly candles, and they are not yet closed. And I think the normal thing for these things, that doesn't mean that Atom is going to surge afterwards. That just says Atom is a good project. So what the fuck is that? This shouldn't happen. This isn't normal. So I think this is an odd price action, and that at least retracing to normal and letting the options open for the future, meaning that retracing certainly doesn't mean the market will not push further to the downside the next quarter. Though retracing up doesn't mean this market is bullish. It just means this market has overpriced some negative stuff, and having that kind of quarterly candle close would be significantly concerning in my personal opinion. And this is not a one kind of event. Just look at Link. I mean, these kinds of things, this shouldn't close like that, but I don't think Link necessarily have to retrace very quickly. As you can see, the structure in here is already consolidating for multiple months. So Link has been consolidating for a long time, but this is a trend, meaning that Link is on the mature range now, and you know my pattern for this thing, meaning that this was a multi-time frame a breakout, which means normally we are just making the bigger time frame pullback. So this is a deep and painful pullback, but we're gonna have to trade all-time highs again on this asset. It's just gonna take a long time to recover. So on Link, there is no immediate recovery necessary. It just means that leaving a lower shadow candle would be normal, because in a range we leave those candles, we leave those shadows, upper shadows and lower shadows. So I think this would be absolutely normal in terms of Link to leave another lower shadow candle in here, even though the quarterly candle close would still be bearish. Over the long term, this asset will take multiple quarters to recover, but it should still recover. In terms of Solana, look at that. I mean, Solana, either that was one of a thing, and now it actually turns out this was all bullshit and this was just a crash, this was a pump and dump, or option number two, Solana definitely has a clear use case, it has a technological breakthrough, which I think it is, and then this perspective, what the fuck is this? So I think assets like Atoms, Solanas, and we'll see AVAXs as well, all of these assets who have clearly setted bullish trends, and they have created breakthrough, either that is through IBC communication channels, or for Solanas, the crazy timestamp mempool, which gives interiority to trades. So this is crazy shitty breakthrough. This is really massive tech breakthrough that has been made out there. Not talking about AVAX and its very good consensus layer, which has a good economical distribution of the value, though this is real great, but these things I think has to recover back to the mean. Like I said, it's not bullish, it's just opening the doors for both bullish and bearish outcomes in the weeks and months and quarters to come, because this means we know the future. We know that this was all bullshit and it's only pain to come. I know that the retails believe it, but you have to understand that the market doesn't know the future. It never does. And the only thing the market always does instead is searching for the answer. And searching means hesitating. What we have here is a clear and definitive answer that this was all bullshit, and I don't think it is. I definitely think Solana has made a breakthrough, just like some very few and limited assets who have real utility and breakthrough technologies will recover from the so-called bear market, which in my personal opinions are not. The only thing we've suffered is a massive black swan, but in a bull trend, things recover. They will start over and over again because we cannot stop innovation. And that's the clearly things that is happening now. There is this dichotomy in which the retailers are getting extremely bearish with the clinical depression sentiment and emotions and feelings. And on the opposite hand, you've got the smart money who's buying over the counter, who is financing all those projects. So the money is still getting in. It's just not getting in the way people think it is. Instead of just buying spot, these guys are just bringing dollars immediately and directly to the companies so that they get something in exchange, either these tokens or vesting tokens or whatever that is, but they're just getting over the counter. They're financing rounds not the way you think it would be, by just financing and buying the tokens. It's way more complicated than that, and in that perspective that I caught people off guard, and definitely have been caught off guard as well. So it was an easy thing to navigate. In terms of BNB, well, do you think these kinds of assets has to recover? No, this is a range after a clear bull trend, and we have set it up a shadow candle. A lower shadow candle here will be normal, but there's no need for rapid recovery on Binance. We're pretty much standing still. Monero, clear, same pattern. We're accumulating on that big range before potentially breaking up or down. Future will tell. But for now, I think this is a solid asset. IO lows points, I think the future is bright for Monero, but until then, we're accumulating in this cup and handle structure. So there's already a lower shadow candle in here, pretty positive so far. AVAX, I mean, look at that. Either AVAX was the biggest ever bullshit, meaning that I think AVAX has brought up some very interesting technology. Well, we'll see all about that, because right now it all says, well, this is bullshit. Let's just flush that shit out. We don't need that. Let's just keep on using the good old finance stuff. So I don't think this is rational kinds of pricing. We should definitely, just like on Atoms and Solana's, recover the absolutely disastrous price actions that has been plotting currently on unclosed quarterly candle close. I think there's very low chances that these quarterly candle closes happen the way they are now. We should retrace back to the mean for these things as well. So I think in terms of AVAX, there is quite a big recovery to come as well. This is the same pattern in here. If we go out there, that means we're going to have to bullish engulf the monthly candle close. So that means that projects, for example, like AVAX, Atoms, I don't know if all of them will recover. I think some of them will definitely, not necessarily all of them. But the good projects, I think, will have to create severe recovery patterns by bullish engulfing whatever happened last month, sending both the message that the quarterly candle closes are not that bearish, but most importantly, sending the message that whatever happened in May was overpriced, with definitely over bearish sentiment and this crash coming from Luna, which has definitely devastating impacts. And Atom first. Well, Atom was the first line of defense after the Luna's crash, and it definitely has been flooded with bearishness. AVAX as well. So both of these projects have been directly impacted with the shit that came out from Luna. And I think this has been a problem on pricing. So if we have to erase those extreme degraded prices, I think bullish engulfing the monthly candle closes that we've just made would be normal. And I think definitely a few limited set of assets are able to do this. There are some other things that I don't follow, but I start to get interested about this thing. Like, for example, the, damn it, what's the name of the token already? It is Tron. So I'm really getting concerned about Tron right now because, I mean, look at Tron. We're going to see this. Quality vision of it, well, it's still bullish, god damn it. So I don't know what that is. Is it really just the most bullish asset that there is now? Did I totally miss on the actual asset that it is? Or is it just a fake in and we're just gonna bleed bath capital? So I'm gonna have to make a video about Tron and trying to figure out more in details. But this is clearly an anomaly. It's going 180 degrees out of the rest of the market. It's now in top 10. So either that is biggest ever bullshit and that's gonna be suffering quite a withdrawal effect. But I have to be honest, the chart looks gorgeous. So we'll talk about that in a separate video. Instead, we're going to leave it for that to this today, though I think a few limited set of quality assets which have definitely utility and has brought up interesting technology over the previous cycle have been hammered, and I would stand Atom. I think AVAX are the first probable ones to recover because they definitely have been the headliners and first collateral damage from the Luna crash. I think Solana's as well are one of the assets that have been hammered without necessarily due reasons. And I wish they will recover their quarterly candle closes before they occur 30 days from now. Until then, we're going to update these things, of course, on a regular basis. Whatever happens in the short run on a daily or even intraday basis is absolute crappy bullshit. Remember that the sentiment is as low as it could possibly be. The retail traders are not trading, or they're getting desperate. So the smart money will not buy. Either they will buy over the counter, or they will just wait for these guys to crack down and sell their tokens. There's not that many ways to get supply when there is no supply. Either you play the time, you play with time, and you let the guys who have an absolutely horrific bearish sentiment just getting confident enough that it will never recover so that they can sell because this is too much of it. I mean, just get me out. And at some point, well, if you want to buy, just try to be rational enough. If you want to buy something, you want to buy it at the cheapest possible price. And I think that's what the smart money is doing now. They know that some people will crack down, so why the heck would they buy unless they know that the others will buy before? So what could lead a smart money manager to buy an asset even though knowing that the current bearish sentiment is at its highest? Well, the only thing that could lead a manager to do this, to anticipate demand, meaning, okay, I'm going to buy now because I'm going to have to buy at more expensive prices later anyway. That means you want to buy this asset in the first place. That means no short-term speculative bullshit, okay? That means long-term investment. So only long-term investment assets, those who still have a roadmap ahead, those who are still working, those who have user retention, those who have future forecasts, and all of these things. So this is going to be weekly to monthly investment kind of profiles who might be getting in, and they won't spread out the money everywhere. They won't buy 50 fucking assets. They will probably buy 2, 3 maximum altcoins. You have to understand that. And these guys, do you think they're going to pull all that money into altcoins? No, they're definitely going to have to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum as well. And they will very likely overweight them in the portfolio. So you have to understand that Bitcoin and ETH, I doubt they will ever go that much down. They will be bought, but there are probably some other smart money investors who will just buy spot on the assets which they think have value to come over the weekly and monthly timeframes. And I think, yep, the Atoms, the Link, the Sols, the Moneros, the Avaxes, and eventually the Trons and so on have the likeliest probabilities to be the ones targeted right now. Okay, we'll see all about that in future updates. That's more than enough for today. Bye, guys.